This was the day Mark's world shattered, the day an innocent game of catch became a distant, haunting memory. One knock on the door, one cold glance from his ex-wife, and a truth so devastating it would echo the very title of our story. He's not your son. He was a single father, devoted, his life built around his beloved Leo. He had no idea that in mere moments, everything he held sacred, every memory, every cherished bond, would be mercilessly ripped away. The crisp autumn air, usually a source of comfort for Mark, held an unusual, almost premonitory bite this particular afternoon. Golden leaves, vibrant hues of a fading summer, danced gracefully from the branches above, landing softly on the meticulously manicured lawn where his son, Leo, played. Mark settled on the sturdy wooden bench, his beige jacket a familiar second skin, watched Leo with an unburdened heart. Leo, a whirlwind of innocent energy, giggled, his small fingers tightly clutching his beloved teddy bear, entirely oblivious to the seismic shift about to occur in his young life. Beside Mark, a well-worn leather baseball glove cradled a bright yellow softball, symbols of countless afternoons spent building memories, cementing a bond he believed unbreakable. The tranquil tableau, bathed in the soft, fading light of the afternoon sun, felt perfect, a sanctuary from the complexities of the world outside. Yet, a shadow was about to fall, darker than any autumn evening. The heavy, dark wooden door, a threshold Mark had crossed countless times, slowly, almost reluctantly, began to open. It didn't swing wide with a welcoming flourish, but rather a tentative creak, like the opening of a long-sealed vault. Then, Sarah appeared. Her presence was immediate, undeniable, and chillingly precise. Dressed in a striking scarlet-red dress that seemed to defy the season's gentle tones, her long, dark, wavy hair cascaded elegantly over her shoulders, framing a face that was as beautiful as it was unyielding. The silver necklace and matching earrings caught the light, sparkling with an icy brilliance that mirrored the coldness in her gaze. She leaned forward, not with a gesture of intimacy, but with a predatory intensity, her eyes locking onto Mark's with an almost surgical precision. The serene warmth of the autumn afternoon visibly recoiled from her entrance. There was no greeting, no polite preamble, just a silent, palpable tension that radiated from her, instantly invading Mark's peaceful bubble. His initial surprise quickly morphed into a profound sense of apprehension, a visceral tightening in his gut that warned him of impending upheaval. He sensed, with a chilling certainty, that the calm he had carefully cultivated, the quiet joy he found in his son's laughter, was about to be irrevocably shattered. The baseball glove, once a symbol of shared dreams, felt suddenly heavy, irrelevant. Mark's mind, usually a fortress of logical thought, raced, searching for an explanation for Sarah's unexpected and unsettling appearance. He had no premonition, no inkling, that this seemingly ordinary moment, a father watching his son play, was poised to become the epicenter of his world's collapse. This wasn't merely a visit, it was an invasion, a prelude to a revelation that would unravel the very fabric of his existence, forcing him to confront truths far more brutal than he could ever fathom. He didn't know it then, but his entire understanding of love, family, and fatherhood was about to be redefined, not through gentle evolution, but through a devastating, unforeseen reforging. Prepare for a story where the bonds of blood mean nothing next to the power of a father's unwavering heart, a heart that was about to be tested beyond its limits. What would Mark do when faced with a lie that jeopardized his entire identity, the very essence of who he was as a man? The answer would redefine everything. The moment stretched, suspended in the crisp autumn air like a fragile, invisible web, taut and shimmering with unspoken tension. Sarah's dark, wavy hair, a cascade of midnight against the stark red of her dress, framed a face carved from granite, unyielding and severe. Her red lips, typically full and expressive, were now compressed into a thin, unyielding line, a silent testament to the devastating words she was about to utter, or perhaps had just uttered in a chilling whisper. Her eyes, dark and penetrating, did not waver, boring into Mark's with an intensity that promised no quarter, carrying an unspoken message of absolute, brutal finality. Mark, who moments ago had been basking in the simple, uncomplicated joy of fatherhood, felt an icy dread seep into his very bones, chilling him to the core. His initial surprise had curdled into profound confusion, a bewildered disbelief that tightened his chest with an unbearable pressure. His eyebrows furrowed, etching deep lines of worry onto his brow, and his mouth hung slightly agape, a silent plea for clarity, for understanding, struggling desperately to form any coherent thought, let alone a response to the looming threat. His body, once relaxed and content on the bench, now leaned slightly forward, a reflex of a man caught in a sudden, inexplicable, and terrifying current, desperately trying to find purchase, to comprehend the abrupt, disorienting shift in the world around him. He felt an unsettling disconnect, as if he were watching a scene unfold, detached from his own reality. In the mid-ground, Leo, his small hand still clinging to the soft fur of his beloved teddy bear, peeked shyly from behind Mark's leg. His innocent eyes, wide and curious, darted between the two adults, sensing the sudden, palpable stiffness that had invaded their space, the strange, suffocating silence that now hung heavy in the air. He did not understand the cause, but the abrupt change in atmosphere, the absence of Mark's usual playful attention, registered on his young face as a faint, innocent frown, a tiny echo of the titanic turmoil unfolding. The golden autumn light, which had previously imbued the scene with a comforting warmth, now seemed to betray Mark, highlighting the sharp, almost cruel angles of Sarah's face, casting her in a stark, unforgiving glow that accentuated her unwavering resolve. The very air between them crackled with unspoken words, a silence more deafening than any shout, loaded with years of unaddressed grievances, unresolved pain, and now, undoubtedly, fresh, devastating news. Mark's world, a mere heartbeat ago vibrant with the joyous echoes of his son's laughter, now felt muted, drained of all color and sound, as if all life had been swallowed by Sarah's ominous arrival. He felt the immense, crushing weight of her gaze, a burden heavy with implications that he was only beginning to comprehend, each agonizing second stretching into an eternity of torturous anticipation, waiting for the other shoe to drop. The autumn leaves, oblivious to the unfolding human drama, continued their silent, graceful descent, each falling leaf a testament to the inexorable passage of time, a time in which Mark's life was about to fundamentally alter, his future cleaved into two distinct, painful halves. The air between them, already thick with an unspoken dread, now hummed with an almost electric charge, crackling with the weight of an impending, devastating truth. Sarah, her silhouette sharply defined against the muted backdrop of the autumn trees, took a deliberate, measured step forward, her movements precise and unhurried, a predator closing in on its unsuspecting prey. Her scarlet dress, a startling burst of color against the subdued hues of the season, seemed to pulsate with a silent, dangerous energy, drawing all eyes to her in a moment of terrible anticipation. Her expression, cast in stone, betrayed no hint of wavering, only a resolute, almost cruel coldness that sent shivers down Mark's spine. Her lips parted, and her voice, though carefully modulated and low, carried an unyielding authority, each syllable dropping like a hammer blow, resonating with a finality that brooked no argument. "Mark," she began, her tone devoid of the warmth that once characterized their interactions, a chilling detachment that underscored the gravity of her message. "I need to tell you something critically important about Leo." The words, carefully chosen, were merely a prelude, a soft tap before the full, brutal force of the impact. Then, the hammer fell, irrevocably altering the course of his life forever. "He's not your son." The phrase, so simple, so direct, yet utterly catastrophic in its implications, reverberated through Mark's entire being, a violent tremor that shook him to his core. It struck him with a physical force, a brutal, gut-wrenching blow to his chest that stole his breath, leaving him gasping for air that felt suddenly thin, acrid, and tainted with betrayal. He recoiled slightly on the wooden bench, his body stiffening as if struck by a lightning bolt, the initial shock now giving way to a sickening, nauseating wave of disbelief that threatened to overwhelm him entirely. His world, a moment ago so firmly grounded, began to spin wildly, dissolving into a kaleidoscope of impossible fragmented memories. His eyes, wide with a raw, agonizing pain and a profound, searing sense of betrayal, darted frantically from Sarah's unfeeling, impenetrable gaze to the innocent, unsuspecting face of Leo. Leo, still clutching his soft, familiar teddy bear, his small frame a beacon of pure, untainted love, stood blissfully oblivious amidst the unfolding chaos, a stark, heartbreaking contrast to the adult turmoil that was tearing Mark apart. The worn leather baseball glove and the bright yellow softball, once cherished symbols of a shared future, of simple, enduring happiness and unbreakable bonds, now lay abandoned beside Mark on the bench, mocking his shattered reality, rendered utterly false and meaningless. The gentle descent of the autumn leaves continued, each leaf spiraling downwards, oblivious to the silent scream that tore through Mark's very soul, a cry of anguish that echoed in the desolate, hollow chambers of his heart. The moment, etched into the very fabric of time, captured the precise instant those devastating words hung suspended in the air, irrevocably altering the trajectory of their lives, severing the past from an unimaginable, terrifying future. A faint, almost imperceptible tremor ran through Mark's hands, clasped tightly in front of him, a desperate, futile attempt to anchor himself against the unbearable, crushing weight of Sarah's revelation. The intricate, ornate details of the dark door and its polished brass handle, once symbols of home, security, and welcoming, now appeared sharper, almost menacing, framing Sarah as a harbinger of unimaginable pain, a gatekeeper to a truth that would forever change him, stripping him of his most fundamental identity. Every breath Mark took felt like shards of glass in his lungs, every beat of his heart a deafening drum of impending loss, each second a torturous eternity. His mind wrestled furiously with the sheer impossibility, trying to reconcile the vivid, tender memories of Leo's birth, his first steps, his first words, the warmth of his small hand in his own, with the cold, undeniable, brutal finality of Sarah's declaration, a lie that had festered and now exploded, leaving wreckage in its wake. Mark's disbelief, a cold, unyielding hand, clutched at his throat, suffocating any coherent thought, trapping him in a vortex of agonizing uncertainty. He slowly, almost mechanically, rose from the rustic wooden bench, his movements stiff and uncertain, like a marionette whose strings had been abruptly tangled, leaving him awkwardly suspended. His eyes remained wide, glazed over with the raw, brutal shock of Sarah's devastating declaration, unable to fully process the seismic shift. His gaze, a desperate pendulum, swung from Sarah, whose face remained a mask of impassive, almost chilling resolve, to Leo, who now glanced up at him, his innocent eyes mirroring the profound shift he sensed in his father's demeanor, a subtle cloud crossing his usually bright face. The young boy's blissful ignorance, his unwavering, unquestioning trust, sharpened the cruel edge of the revelation, twisting the knife deeper into Mark's already lacerated heart, making the lie feel even more monstrous. Sarah, a striking figure framed by the dark doorway, held her ground with an unshakable resolve, a testament to years of practiced emotional control. Her red dress, a stark visual anchor in the violently shifting landscape of Mark's reality, seemed to vibrate with a quiet, dangerous power, an almost predatory stillness. Her arms were now subtly crossed, a defensive posture that spoke volumes, perhaps bracing herself for Mark's inevitable emotional explosion, or more subtly, steeling herself against her own lingering tendrils of guilt, a flicker of humanity barely concealed beneath her steely exterior. The autumn leaves around them continued their gentle, indifferent descent, a soft, golden cascade against the backdrop of their dramatic human confrontation, oblivious to the profound, life-altering tragedy unfolding. Mark's mind raced, a frantic, desperate search through the archives of his memory. He replayed every cherished moment, every shared laugh, every quiet evening spent with Leo, trying to find a crack, a flaw, any logical inconsistency in Sarah's impenetrable claim. He remembered Leo's first steps, the tiny hand gripping his finger, the infectious giggle that could chase away any shadow. How could all of it be a lie, The sheer, crushing weight of the moment pressed down, making the familiar surroundings of his own home feel alien and hostile, stripped of their former comfort and sanctity. The sunlight, previously benign and comforting, now felt harsh, unforgiving, cruelly illuminating every nuance of raw, agonizing pain on Mark's face and every unwavering, resolute line on Sarah's. The dark door, still partially ajar, seemed to loom like an ominous portal, a gateway to an unknown, terrifying future that he had never envisioned, a void where his paternal identity once stood. Mark's initial confusion, a thick fog of bewildering disbelief, was rapidly replaced by a desperate, burning need for answers, for any logical explanation, any shred of evidence to refute this impossible, soul-crushing truth. He felt a cold, hard knot forming in the pit of his stomach, anticipating the agonizing details of betrayal that he knew, with a sinking certainty, were surely to follow, each moment dragging out the unbearable suspense. Each breath was a struggle, each heartbeat a painful throb of impending doom, threatening to consume him entirely. He heard his own voice, surprisingly steady despite the tempest raging within him, cut through the suffocating silence. "Sarah, what are you talking about? What do you mean? He's not my son." His words, a desperate plea for clarification, for a lifeline, hung heavy in the air, a final futile attempt to deny the undeniable, to push back against the tsunami of devastation. He knew, deep down, that his world was already irrevocably broken, shattered into irreparable pieces by the woman standing before him, the mother of the child he believed was his own, now revealing a secret that would redefine his very existence. Mark's composure, a thin veneer over a lifetime of perceived stability, crumbled violently, disintegrating into dust. His hands, trembling uncontrollably, rose instinctively to clutch his head, as if to physically contain the explosion of agony and disbelief raging within his skull, threatening to split him apart. His broad shoulders, usually squared with confidence and strength, slumped against the cold, dark doorframe, seeking a desperate, futile support in a world that had suddenly tilted violently on its axis, throwing him completely off balance. His face, once serene and strong, was now contorted with an excruciating anguish, a raw, unflinching display of a man whose very foundations had been violently, irrevocably shaken, leaving him a hollow shell. For a fleeting moment, his eyes squeezed shut, a desperate, almost childlike attempt to physically shut out the unbearable, brutal truth Sarah had just delivered, to retreat into the comforting darkness of non-existence, to erase the last agonizing seconds. Sarah, observing Mark's profound breakdown, allowed a flicker of regret to cross her features, a fleeting shadow of what might have been, a ghost of a shared past. Perhaps it was even a hint of pity, a momentary crack in her carefully constructed facade of cold resolve, revealing a sliver of humanity. Her arms, which had been defensively crossed, now hung loosely at her sides, indicating a subtle, almost imperceptible shift in her guarded stance, a loosening of her defenses, though the core of her devastating decision remained unyielding, immutable. She watched him intently, her gaze a complex blend of hardened resolve and a nascent understanding of the immense, crushing pain she had inflicted. Leo, ever the innocent observer, his young mind acutely attuned to the emotional currents around him, mimicked his father's distress. He clutched his beloved teddy bear even tighter, burying his small face into its soft fur, his own face a picture of profound confusion and unease, reflecting the tumultuous, chaotic energy radiating from the adults. The baseball glove and the bright yellow ball, now lying forgotten and abandoned on the bench, were poignant, almost cruel reminders of Mark's shattered dreams, of a future that had just evaporated into thin, cold air, leaving only emptiness behind. The autumn light, filtered through the rustling golden leaves, seemed to dim perceptibly, as if in mourning, casting long, mournful shadows on the ground, deepening the sense of despair that permeated the air, suffocating all hope. The atmosphere felt heavy, suffocating, each breath a conscious, painful effort, like trying to breathe underwater. Every minute detail, from the textured dark wood of the door frame to the faint sparkle of Sarah's elegant necklace, seemed amplified, sharper, more significant, more menacing. in this moment of intense emotional upheaval, a scene etched in his mind forever. Mark's internal world was a maelstrom of pain, a vicious whirlpool of betrayal, and a desperate, agonizing fight to keep hold of his crumbling reality, his sense of self eroding with every passing second. The crushing, unbearable weight of Sarah's revelation threatened to pull him under, to drown him in its cruel, icy depths, leaving him to suffocate. His identity as a father, a role he cherished above all else, the very purpose of his existence, and his very essence as a partner, a husband, had been utterly, devastatingly undone, reduced to nothingness. He could almost feel the phantom eyes of unseen neighbors, the imagined whispers of gossip and judgment, the silent scorn, even though they were physically alone in this terrible, isolating moment. The public humiliation, though not overtly visible, was profoundly internal, burning deep within him, scorching his self-worth and leaving a gaping, festering wound that might never truly heal, a scar on his very soul. He tried desperately to speak, to form words, but only a choked gasp escaped his lips, a testament to the agony that had stolen his voice, leaving him lost in a silent abyss of despair, incomprehension, and profound, crushing loss. His entire being numb with shock and grief. Mark had retreated, not physically fleeing, but collapsing inward, defeated, his spirit irrevocably broken. He now sat back on the hard wooden bench, his broad shoulders slumped in utter despair, his frame seeming to shrink under the weight of the revelation. His head was bowed, his gaze fixed on his own clasped hands, a desperate attempt to find a focal point, a tangible anchor in a world that had lost all its bearings, spinning wildly out of control. He couldn't bring himself to meet Sarah's gaze, unable to face the architect of his pain, nor could he look at Leo, whose innocent, trusting presence would only amplify the crushing weight of his unbearable pain. A constant, agonizing reminder of the lie. The baseball glove and the bright yellow ball remained untouched beside him, silent, poignant witnesses to his profound despair, their vibrancy now mocking his internal gray, a stark contrast to the emptiness within. Sarah, no longer confined to the ominous, shadow-filled frame of the doorway, had moved a distance from him, taking a few steps into the open air. Her striking red dress, a vibrant, almost defiant splash against the muted, melancholic background of the autumn trees, seemed to demand attention, even as she deliberately avoided eye contact with Mark, perhaps unable to bear the raw anguish in his eyes. She stood facing away from him, looking out into the distant foliage, her profile revealing a complex interplay of regret, perhaps a nascent flicker of guilt, a fleeting moment of self-recrimination, but beneath it all, an unyielding, resolute stance that spoke of her resolve. She appeared reflective, as if wrestling with the intricate, thorny demands of her own conscience, or perhaps simply gathering her strength for the next painful, inevitable exchange. Leo, still clutching his beloved teddy bear, had, in his innocent wisdom, intuitively distanced himself from the adult turmoil, seeking his own small refuge. He had sat down on the ground a few feet away, completely absorbed in his own small world, his tiny fingers delicately exploring a bright yellow leaf, its simple natural beauty a stark, almost cruel contrast to the profound, adult pain that enveloped his parents, a silent tragedy unfolding before his very eyes. The silence between Mark and Sarah was heavy, almost suffocating, laden with unspoken accusations, unanswerable questions, and the echoes of a shattered past, a future that no longer existed. It was broken only by the gentle, rhythmic rustling of the autumn leaves, a mournful symphony, and the distant, almost cheerful chirping of birds, sounds that felt entirely incongruous with the desolation of the moment, a cruel juxtaposition. The golden light of the late afternoon, once a source of comfort and warmth, now cast long, melancholic shadows across the lawn, deepening the sense of isolation and sorrow that enveloped Mark. Consuming him entirely, he felt utterly exposed, vulnerable, as if his very soul had been stripped bare, laid open to the harsh, unforgiving realities of betrayal and devastating loss, leaving him raw and defenseless. The once familiar and comforting environment of his home, his sanctuary, now felt like an empty, unforgiving stage for his intensely personal, heart-wrenching tragedy, a public display of his private agony. Every cell in his body screamed with the unfairness, the cruelty of it all, a silent protest against a fate he never deserved. He had built his life around Leo, around the profound love and purpose that fatherhood provided, and now, that very foundation had been violently ripped away, leaving a gaping void. The struggle to reconcile his cherished memories with this new, brutal truth was an agonizing battle within his own mind, tearing his sanity thin. He desperately wanted to lash out, to scream, to demand answers with every fiber of his being, but the words were choked in his throat, replaced by a hollow, aching emptiness that settled deep in his chest, a heavy, suffocating weight. His love for Leo, he realized, was not defined by biology, but by the countless moments, the shared laughter, the quiet comfort, the unwavering presence. But how could he fight for a bond that Sarah now deemed illegitimate, a bond she had just declared fraudulent? This public humiliation, this utter shattering of his identity, was far more profound than any physical wound. It was a wound to his very spirit, a betrayal that cut him to the core, leaving him utterly broken and lost. A close-up shot of Mark's left hand, tightly clenched into a fist, resting heavily on his knee, told a silent, profound story of loss and burgeoning strength. If his wedding ring was still there, it would glint dully in the filtered autumn light, a poignant, ironic symbol of a broken promise, a shattered illusion of fidelity and family. The worn leather baseball glove, a faithful companion of countless joyful afternoons and hopeful dreams, still lay beside him on the bench, its presence now emphasizing the cruel, undeniable loss of a simple, wholesome future he had envisioned with Leo, a future now irrevocably tainted. But beneath the surface of his overwhelming despair, a subtle yet powerful transformation was beginning to stir, a quiet rebellion against the injustice. Mark's jaw, which had been slack and trembling with shock, was now set with a nascent resolve, a steely, quiet determination slowly but surely starting to replace the agonizing helplessness that had consumed him moments earlier, like a deep-seated fire igniting. Sarah's shadow, a long, dark, oppressive imprint, fell across the ground near him, a lingering, unwelcome reminder of her chilling presence and the crushing weight of her devastating words. Yet she herself was just out of frame, granting Mark a fragile, precious moment of internal solitude, a brief respite to gather his fragmented thoughts, to reassemble the shattered pieces of his mind. Leo, a few feet away, his small face etched with a tiny, bewildered frown, looked intently towards Mark, his innocent gaze a silent question. His young eyes, filled with an instinctive response to his father's profound distress, seemed to be questioning, silently pleading for understanding, for the familiar world he knew to return, unblemished by adult complexities and sorrow. The vibrant autumn trees in the background blurred into a soft, golden haze, the cinematic focus intensely on Mark's internal battle, on the tumultuous, raging landscape of his soul, a storm brewing beneath a calm exterior. His breath, though still deep and ragged, punctuated by an occasional tremor, carried a new undercurrent, a growing firmness around his mouth, a subtle yet undeniable shift in his entire demeanor, from victim to warrior. This was the precise moment of the turn, the critical pivot where overwhelming despair began its slow, arduous retreat, giving way to a nascent defiance, a quiet, unyielding strength beginning to simmer beneath the surface of his profound, consuming grief. He felt the sharp, bitter, agonizing sting of betrayal, yes, a wound that would forever mark him, a scar on his heart, but also, paradoxically, a powerful surge of fierce, unyielding protective love for the boy who was, in every single way that truly mattered, undeniably his son, his purpose, his reason for being. The crushing weight of the world, the heavy, suffocating burden of Sarah's revelation hadn't magically lifted. It still pressed down, a relentless force, but Mark was learning to carry it, to push back against its oppressive force, finding an unexpected reservoir of resilience and unwavering resolve within himself, a strength he never knew he possessed. He understood now, with absolute clarity, That fatherhood was not merely a biological fact, a DNA marker on a chart, a simple bloodline, but a profound sacred connection forged in shared laughter, comforting tears, and countless acts of unconditional love and unwavering presence. He looked at the small, innocent figure of Leo, and a fierce primal roar erupted within his silent heart. He wouldn't allow this biological technicality, this cruel twist of fate, this monstrous lie to sever the most cherished sacred bond of his life. He would fight. He would stand for his son, regardless of the lineage Sarah now claimed. This was his truth, his unwavering commitment, burning brighter than any legal document or bloodline. The path ahead was undoubtedly fraught with challenges, legal battles, emotional turmoil, and the judgment of a world that often valued genetics over genuine affection. But in this quiet, desperate, transformative moment, Mark found his unwavering purpose, his reason to endure. He would become an immovable object against Sarah's irresistible force, fueled by a love that transcended all definitions, all betrayals, all societal expectations. His fight was not just for Leo, but for the very definition of family, for the true meaning of fatherhood, a battle he was prepared to wage with every fiber of his being, to the very end. In a moment that seemed to defy the very laws of emotional gravity, pushing against the crushing weight of despair, Mark slowly lifted his head. His eyes, which had been clouded with pain, bewilderment, and agonizing confusion, were now direct, steady, and blazing with a new, formidable kind of strength, an inner fire that refused to be extinguished, the despair that had threatened to consume him, to drag him into an abyss of nothingness, was gone, replaced by an unwavering resolve, a quiet, unshakable fire that burned deep within his soul. He met Sarah's gaze head-on, an act of unexpected, stark defiance that clearly surprised her, catching her completely off guard. A flicker of astonishment crossed her carefully composed features, a slight widening of her dark eyes, as if she hadn't anticipated this powerful resurgence of spirit in the man she had just attempted to dismantle, to strip of his identity. The shift in Mark's demeanor was palpable, a breathtaking transformation from a defeated father on the brink of collapse to a fierce, unyielding protector, a formidable force of nature. Her striking red dress still stood out, a bold statement against the muted autumn backdrop. But now it was Mark's unwavering gaze, his newfound conviction, his undeniable inner strength that commanded all attention, anchoring the tumultuous scene. Leo, still clutching his beloved teddy bear, remained in the background, a silent, yet undeniably central figure in their renewed and now more intensely charged conflict, the innocent heart of the storm. The autumn trees, with their fiery, beautiful hues of crimson and gold, seemed to frame this pivotal, life-altering moment, their vibrant colors reflecting the raw, emotional intensity of the scene, a natural canvas for human drama. Mark's body language was firmer, his shoulders squared with renewed purpose, his chin slightly lifted in defiance, indicating that he had made a profound, unshakable decision, a sacred vow to himself and to Leo. The air, once heavy with despair and suffocating silence, now crackled with a determined energy, a palpable tension as a battle of wills began to unfold, a silent declaration of war for the heart of a child. The gentle autumn sunlight, though still soft and diffused, seemed to find and illuminate the steely glint in Mark's eyes, signaling with stark clarity that he was prepared to fight. Not with anger, not with accusations, not with vengeance, but with the quiet, formidable power of undeniable, unconditional love, a force more potent than any legal claim. His voice, when it came, was low, calm, yet imbued with an authority and a profound certainty that left no room for doubt, no space for compromise. "Sarah," he began, his tone resonating with a deep, primal conviction, "you can tell me anything you want about biology, about legalities, about your past. But you cannot, and you will not, tell me who my son is. I've raised Leo. I've been there for every scraped knee, every sleepless night, every laugh, every milestone, every single moment of his young life." He paused, his gaze sweeping over Leo, then settling back on Sarah, a silent challenge in his eyes. He calls me Dad. That isn't a title given by blood, Sarah. It's earned with love, with presence, with unwavering commitment, with a lifetime of devotion. And that I have given him, every single day of his life, without question, without hesitation. His words hung in the air, a powerful testament to a truth deeper than any DNA test, more profound than any legal document. He wasn't pleading, he was declaring. He was laying claim to his fatherhood, not as a right, but as an undeniable reality forged in pure, selfless love. The very essence of what defined a father was about to be passionately argued, not in a sterile courtroom, but on his front lawn, under the watchful, judging eyes of Autumn, and the innocent gaze of the boy he refused to lose. Sarah listened intently, her initial surprise slowly giving way to a grudging respect, a dawning realization that she had gravely underestimated the depth of Mark's bond with Leo, and the fierce protective love that fueled him now. An unexpected and overwhelming force. His words were cutting through her carefully constructed defenses, reaching a part of her that had long been dormant, challenging her own definition of family and what truly mattered in the sacred bond between a parent and child. He was not just a man, he was a father, defined by his actions, not by his genes. Sarah's meticulously constructed facade, the one that had held her steady through years of unspoken secrets and recent confrontation, began to crack, slowly, subtly, like ice under the sun. Her expression, previously unyielding, cold and impenetrable, underwent a profound, almost imperceptible shift. The hardness around her eyes softened, melting away to reveal a flicker of doubt, perhaps even a nascent understanding, a dawning empathy, replacing her earlier, rigid resolve with something akin to human vulnerability. She looked from Mark, his face now a mask of unwavering determination, his resolve unshakable and undeniable, to Leo, still a gentle, oblivious presence in the background, a silent testament to the love that transcended all else, the innocent core of their universe. The fierce, palpable love radiating from Mark, his unwavering commitment to the boy, seemed to have finally pierced through her carefully erected defenses, reaching a part of her heart she thought long dormant, long buried beneath layers of resentment and self-preservation. She took a deep, almost involuntary breath, her shoulders visibly relaxing, shedding some of the immense tension that had gripped her, a physical manifestation of her internal shift. Mark, seizing this fragile moment of softening, this tentative opening in her armor, extended a hand towards her. It was not a gesture of anger, not an accusation, not a demand for retribution, but a profound, open offering of shared responsibility, a heartfelt plea for a common ground, an urgent call for alliance, all for Leo's sake, for his future, for his well-being. His hand was open, vulnerable, yet firm, extending an olive branch in the midst of their emotional battlefield, a clear invitation for peace. The autumn light, as if in direct, sympathetic response to this profound emotional shift, seemed to grow perceptibly warmer, casting a hopeful golden glow on the entire scene, painting it with hues of possibility. The trees and their vibrant, fiery leaves, once silent, impartial witnesses to despair, now provided a softer, more compassionate backdrop, their gentle rustling echoing a possibility of peace, a whisper of a new beginning. The air, previously charged with the electric static of conflict and unresolved pain, now held a fragile understanding, a tentative truce, a glimmer of a path forward that, while undoubtedly difficult and fraught with challenges, was undeniably necessary for all their sakes. The image captured the delicate, precarious balance between past hurt and the potential for a new, difficult, but ultimately essential alliance, a shared journey. Sarah's slight head tilt, her gaze now downcast, suggested a profound internal deliberation, a wrestling match with her own choices, her own conscience, and the sheer, undeniable gravity of Mark's heartfelt appeal, his impassioned declaration of love, the immense weight of his words, steeped in a genuine, unconditional love that defied all logic, had finally reached her, bypassing her hardened exterior and forcing her to reevaluate her entire stance, her entire perception of what truly constituted family. She was compelled to acknowledge a truth that existed far beyond mere bloodline, a truth that resonated with the deeper, more profound meaning of family and connection, a truth she could no longer deny. She had arrived expecting to deliver a final, crushing blow to end a chapter, but Mark's unexpected strength, his pure, unadulterated love, had disarmed her completely, leaving her vulnerable and exposed. In this quiet, transformative moment, the future of their family, however redefined, however unconventional, hung precariously in the balance, a single thread holding it together. Her voice, when it came, was soft, uncharacteristically hesitant, fragile. "Mark," she said, her voice barely a whisper, a tremor of emotion escaping. I didn't think you'd react like this. I expected anger, but I see now. You truly are his father, more than anyone else." The admission, though painful, though fraught with her own history, was a profound gift, a validation of everything Mark felt, a testament to the power of a love that defied biological definitions, that rewrote the rules of kinship. It was the crucial turn, the moment the path diverged from absolute loss to a complicated, yet hopeful and undeniably true future for Leo, a future where love, not blood, would define their bonds. In a moment that sealed an unspoken pact, a silent agreement forged in shared pain and burgeoning hope, Mark knelt down on the lush green grass, the cool blades a grounding force beneath him, connecting him to the earth, to his renewed purpose. His strong arms, which had just moments ago trembled with despair and betrayal, now wrapped around Leo in a tender, protective embrace, a profound gesture of enduring love and unwavering commitment, a silent promise to his son. Leo, his small face buried into Mark's familiar comforting shoulder, smiled brightly, a pure, unadulterated expression of joy and security, of a world put right. His small hands clutched his beloved teddy bear even more tightly, feeling utterly safe, completely cherished, and unconditionally loved in his father's arms, the safest place in the world. Sarah, standing a short distance away, her vibrant red dress now a softer, less defiant element against the warm, golden autumn light, watched them. Her face, which had cycled through anger, regret, surprise, and reluctant respect, now settled into a wistful, almost hopeful expression. A silent acknowledgement of the powerful, unbreakable bond she had once tried so cruelly to sever. The heavy tension that had permeated the air, a thick cloud of conflict, had completely dissipated, replaced by a quiet, profound understanding that transcended words, a fragile peace. The backdrop of autumn trees, with their glowing, fiery leaves, no longer symbolized a harsh ending or a season of decay, but rather a beautiful new beginning, a season of profound change that had, against all odds, brought forth a deeper, more resonant truth about the true meaning of family. The worn leather baseball glove and the bright yellow ball, once symbols of shattered dreams and a lost future, were now reimagined, transformed into emblems of a future filled with countless genuine father-son moments, regardless of biological ties, a tapestry woven with love and laughter. This intimate, heartfelt moment solidified their bond, forging a new definition of family, one built not on blood, not on genetics, but on love, on unwavering presence, and on an unbreakable, conscious choice. The entire scene was bathed in a warm, golden light, a palpable glow that seemed to signify hope, resilience, forgiveness, and the enduring power of connection, illuminating their path forward. The soft focus on Mark and Leo emphasized the central, timeless theme of enduring love and the extraordinary strength of chosen family, proving once and for all that love truly knows no boundaries, no limitations, no definitions. The air was peaceful, serene, filled with a gentle promise, hinting at a future where, despite all challenges, despite all past betrayals, love would always find a way to thrive, to define, to unite, to heal. It was a testament to the fact that the greatest gifts in life are often those forged in adversity, strengthened by truth, and bound by an unbreakable, unconditional love, a treasure beyond measure. This story reminds us that family is built on connections that run deeper than blood, woven from countless moments unwavering commitment, and unconditional love. If this powerful story moved you, please take a moment to like this video, share your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories that explore the true meaning of connection and resilience. Your support helps us share these vital narratives with the world, fostering understanding and empathy, one incredible, heart-wrenching story at a time. Thank you for watching.